Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Star Wars Legends Lounge, the show that celebrates the books from Star Wars Legends. I'm Aaron Motes. On today's episode, Jedi Knight Jaden Korr and the crew of the Junker pursue the escaped clones in the unknown regions. Jaden tracks the clones to a strange space station, one pulsating with an ancient dark energy. Will Jaden be able to stop the clones before they release a powerful evil into the galaxy? We'll find out in today's book, Riptide by Paul S. Kemp. But before we do, it's listener question time. Just one email today. It comes from Ugo, who says, in your episodes about the Force Unleashed books, you mentioned that George Lucas was involved in the project, but he said that Darth Vader did not have an apprentice. I have a theory that we, the reader/player, are made to believe that Galen Merrick is Vader's apprentice, but actually, he and the audience are deceived. He's just an assassin to do Vader's and perhaps Sidious's bidding. This is something we also saw with Ventress and Dooku in the Clone Wars animated show. In the second book, we discover Starkiller's clone has Galen's memories, and the question would be, was Palpatine and Vader experimenting with Galen? Was this the initial plan for Palpatine to clone himself and transfer his memory to his clones? What did you think? I would have loved to see how the story ended. By the way, I haven't read the story of Palpatine's clone. In which series can I read about it? Well, Ugo, to answer your second question, that would be the Dark Empire comic series by Tom Veitch. Dark Empire 2, and, finally, Empire's End. You can find them all in trade paperback, and you could probably find some places where you can read them online. The first Dark Empire is inspired by some of George Lucas's early thoughts about Luke Skywalker falling to the dark side of the Force at the end of Return of the Jedi. It came out at the same time as Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. There's a bit of a dividing line among Star Wars Legends fans between the two stories because of how different they are in portraying the state of the galaxy following the end of the rebellion. I would say that most Legends fans prefer Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy and how it set forth the roadmap for the post-original trilogy storytelling. But there is a very enthusiastic group of Legends fans that prefer Veitch's Dark Empire. I encourage you to check out the Dark Empire comics and see which one you prefer. To answer your first question, Ugo, that's a good theory. Maybe Galen Merrick was the original inspiration for Palpatine. Maybe all of the Galen Merricks were originally Palpatine clones. That Palpatine would grow this vessel and allow Vader to train, and eventually when Palpatine had used up his body, or when someone or something was about to kill him, he would then transfer his essence into Galen Merrick, into this trained Force user. I like that theory. If that works for you, great. Believe me, I've heard stranger theories pertaining to Starkiller and pertaining to Palpatine's cloning program. I think this one actually works pretty good. Thank you for the email, Ugo. Now, listener, if you have a question for the show, you can email me at swlegendslounge@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram at swlegendslounge. And if you'd like to get your voice on the show, just record a short message and email it in. But please record it in MP3 audio format. Coming up at the end of the show, we'll again hear from Ugo as he wants to share an unpopular Star Wars opinion with me. You'll want to stay tuned for that. It should be fun. But now it's time for today's book, Riptide by Paul S. Kemp. Grab yourself a drink. Let's head in to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. The story begins where the previous book, Crosscurrent, ended, with Jedi with Jedi Knight Jaden Core, Scrapper Pilot Keaton Fall, and Jaden's new apprentice, Mar Edie Shale, aboard Junker, chasing a group of Force-sensitive clones into the unknown regions. Jaden contacts Jedi Master Luke Skywalker to tell him about the clones and the destruction of the Harbinger. Luke tells Jaden that he's sending help, but it won't reach Faust for a while. Until then, Jaden is on his own. The escaped clones are sick, all except one, named Soldier, the final clone produced by the scientists on the frozen moon. Soldier is desperate to find the medicine needed to help the other 6 clones and their 3 children to keep the illness at bay. The clones are led by Seer, who says the only chance for salvation is to find Mother, a deity deep in the unknown regions. Soldier doesn't believe in Mother, but the other clones overrule him. Still, Soldier is able to convince them that they need to find medicine if they want to live long enough to make it to Mother. And there's only one planet in the region with any type of medical facility: Faust. Elsewhere, Darth Weirlock hires another set of assassins to hunt for Jaden Core, a pair of Umbaran siblings. Niece Nen and his sister, Syl, are ordered to capture Jaden and the leader of the escaped clones. Weirlock needs them alive. The Umbarans aren't Force-sensitive, but their presence dampens a Force user's ability to use their powers. Weirlock gives Niece 2 pieces of ancient Rakatan technology that can transfer a person's consciousness to another vessel. The Sith also tells the Umbarans to take another clone with them, the Iteration, a vessel they can use to trap Jaden Core's mind. Despite Soldier's best effort, the illness kills 3 of the clones and 2 of the children by the time the clones reach Faust. When they land, Soldier and the 3 remaining clones storm the capital's med center and threaten to kill people unless they get the medication they need. During the standoff, Junker arrives on the planet. Our heroes split up. Jaden and Mar head into the med center, while Keedron flies up to the roof to stop the clones from escaping in the center's medical shuttle. The clones make it to the roof and overwhelm Keedron. They knock him nearly unconscious and drag him into the shuttle with them. As the clones raise the ramp to take off, Niece Nen sneaks on board and hides in the cargo hold. Jaden and Mar arrive just as the shuttle lifts off. Jaden recognizes the clones. One looks like Jaden's master, Kyle Katarn. One looks like Mara Jade Skywalker. One looks like the Sith Lady, Lumaya. And the last one looks exactly like Jaden himself. In hyperspace, Seer feels Mother's touch, beckoning the clones to a mysterious system deep in the unknown regions. She orders Runner to kill Keedron, but before he ejects the Scrapper out of an airlock, Niece appears from his hiding place in the hold and attacks Runner. The clone tries to fight back with the Force, but something weird happens. The Umbaran's presence plunges the hold into darkness. Runner's lightsaber flashes, falters, and winks out. Keedron watches Niece advance on Runner, stab the clone repeatedly, and kill him. The Umbaran then grabs Keedron and chains him to a pipe in hopes of using the Scrapper as leverage against Jaden Core. When Runner doesn't return to the cockpit, Seer sends another clone, Hunter, to look for him. The clone finds Runner's body at the entrance to the cargo hold. When she kneels to investigate, Niece shoots and kills her. The Umbaran then sneaks up to the cockpit. When he enters, Niece uses his powers to influence Soldier and Seer, cutting them off from the Force. The assassin subdues both the clones, cuffing them to the floor, and calls his sister Syl to come pick them up. Junker arrives first, however. Jaden and Mar fire on the shuttle to try to disable it, but Syl arrives and starts firing on Junker. Nis contacts Jaden and Mar and tells the Jedi he has Kedron hostage. Nis says that if Jaden agrees to exchange himself for Kedron, the Umbaran will allow Junker to leave safely. Quickly, Jaden puts on a hardsuit and rockets across space toward the medical shuttle. Inside, Kedron hears footsteps approaching. It's a little girl about 9 years old. She says her name is Grace. Kedron asks the girl to help free him, but Grace is terrified. She sees the bodies of Runner and Hunter and turns to flee. But Kedron gets her to stop. He gets Grace to grab one of the blades on the floor and slide it over to him. Quickly, Kedron frees himself and silently heads up to the flight deck. While Nis talks with his sister from the pilot seat, Kedron sneaks into the cockpit and starts to free Soldier. The clone jumps up and attacks the Umbaran, slamming his head against a bulkhead. Kedron takes advantage of the situation and launches free in one of the shuttle's escape pods. Nis, under orders from Darth Weirlock, also flees in an escape pod. He calls his sister and orders her to shoot Kedron. Floating in space, Jaden uses his hardsuit's rockets to maneuver over toward Kedron's pod. He ignites his lightsaber and blocks Syl's laser fire. Nis reaches the Umbaran shuttle just as Jaden blocks one more bolt right back into the cockpit, killing Syl. The clones jump to light speed as Mar uses Junker's tractor beam to bring Jaden and Kedron back on board. Our heroes head off after the surviving clones, with Nis in hot pursuit. Seer leads the medical shuttle to a strange star system deep in the unknown regions, where they find a weird, ancient space station orbiting a dead planet. The station is brimming with biotechnology from the days of the Rakatan Infinite Empire. When the clones dock, Seer receives a message from Mother, calling them down to the planet. The clones watch as a tube emerges from the planet and reaches up to the station. Soldier is wary of traveling down the tube, but Seer is adamant. Mother is down below. Junker arrives and spots the station. Immediately, Jaden and Mar feel a dark side presence. The Jedi head down to the station while Kedron and Junker remain in orbit. When Jaden and Mar enter the station, they're attacked by walking skeletons. It's the station, Jaden says. It's alive, and it's moving the bodies. The Jedi fight their way through the skeletons and find the entrance to a tunnel. Jaden orders his apprentice to wait on the station while he enters the tube room and prepares to head down to the planet. Just then, Nis arrives in the system and heads into the station. Kedron spots the Umbaran ship and follows, hoping to stop the assassin before he finds Jaden and Mar. Kedron tries to surprise Nis, but he's no match for the Umbaran. Nis knocks Kedron unconscious and travels deeper into the station. He confronts Mar at the entrance to the tunnel. The two battle, but Nis's ability to dampen the Force overwhelms Mar and knocks him out. On the planet's surface, the clones find Mother's lair. The entity beckons Seer forward. When the clone reaches up to embrace her salvation, Mother engulfs Seer, forcing itself into the clone's body. Finally, after millennia of being trapped, the entity can escape the station, its prison. Horrified, Soldier grabs a hold of Grace and sprints back toward the tunnel and escape. Meanwhile, Nis enters the tube room and attacks Jaden just before the Jedi enters Mother's lair. Jaden ignites his lightsaber, but the Umbaran uses his power to dampen the Force, making the lightsaber wink out. Nis grabs Jaden by the neck, choking him. Just before the Jedi loses consciousness, Jaden reaches for the dark side of the Force and grips the Umbaran's throat. Nis struggles, but Jaden squeezes, strangling the life out of the assassin. Injured and exhausted, Jaden passes out before he can enter Mother's chamber. As he falls unconscious, a set of footsteps approaches his body. It's the Iteration, another clone of Jaden Korr. The Iteration stabs one of the mind spears against Jaden's temple and rips the Jedi's consciousness out of his body. Mar awakens and jumps into the tunnel, hoping to help his master against the Umbaran. When Mar emerges, he finds a chaotic scene. Nice is dead, and one Jaden Korr is standing over another, holding a mind spear. Mar attacks the Iteration. He quickly defeats the clone Jaden by knocking the clone out with a lightsaber hilt to the side of his head. Mar checks on his master. Jaden is dead. However, the Iteration is still alive, and Jaden's consciousness is in the mind spear. Quickly, Mar strips off Jaden's clothes and hides the body. He then dresses the Iteration and uses his lightsaber to cut off 3 of the clone's fingers. Mar then stabs the mind spear into the Iteration's temple and waits, hoping to bring his master back. Jaden Korr opens his eyes. He's confused. He feels terrible. He hears a voice. "Master? Mar, is that you? What's happened?" Mar helps Jaden to his feet. He tells Jaden he just arrived and found Nice and his master lying on the floor. "The mission," Jaden says. "We have to stop the clones." The Jedi turn to leave the tunnel room and open the door to Mother's chamber. To their surprise, they see Soldier running toward them, carrying Grace. Behind Soldier, they see something incredible. A huge pulsating tumor with muscular appendages, reaching out. "It's Mother!" Soldier yells. "We have to leave! Now!" The Jedi and the clone race into the tunnel room and head back up to the station. When they arrive, Mar calls Kedron for pickup. The 4 make their way to the hangar and confront more of the animated skeletons. Fighting their way through the Walking Dead, the Jedi can feel that Mother is getting closer. They finally make their way through the corpses and find the hangar. Jaden orders Soldier and Grace into Junker, but the clone refuses. "Grace is sick," Soldier says. "The medication is in the shuttle." Soldier tells Jaden he'll grab the medicine, blow the shuttle, and fly off in Nice's ship. He just wants to protect Grace. He promises Jaden they'll just take the shuttle deeper into the unknown regions and find a quiet planet to live on. Out of time, Jaden agrees and follows Mar into Junker. The ship lifts off and escapes the station. When Kedron believes they're safely away, he turns Junker around. The medical shuttle's power core erupts. The station falls to the planet below and explodes, killing Mother. Kedron sets course back to Faust. While in hyperspace, Jaden heads to the refresher. He splashes water on his face and checks his injuries. In the mirror, Jaden notices that a small scar on his cheek that he's had since he was a child is gone. Just then, Jaden remembers the fight with Nice, and he remembers looking into his own eyes just before blacking out. Jaden looks down at his missing fingers. The wound looks almost new. The story ends with Soldier and Grace flying deeper into the unknown regions. Soldier looks at the sleeping girl in the co-pilot seat. Boxes of medications sitting on the floor behind her. Soldier smiles and jumps to hyperspace, eager to start a new life together with little Grace. Time to take a break. When we return, I'll talk more about Riptide. I'm Aaron Moats. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. Thank you for listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge, where we celebrate the books from Star Wars Legends. But allow me to recommend a book from Star Wars canon. Queen's Hope tells the story of Padme Amidala undertaking a secret mission during the Clone War, while her handmaiden and best friend, Sabe, doubles for Padme in the Senate. It's a fast-paced tale that's a fitting end to the Padme Amidala Queen's trilogy. That's Queen's Hope by E.K. Johnston. Welcome back to the Star Wars Legends Lounge, the show that celebrates the books from Star Wars Legends. I'm Aaron Moats, and today I'm talking about Riptide by Paul S. Kemp. Riptide was the culmination of the story that began in Crosscurrent. All in all, I like the story of Riptide a little better than Crosscurrent. I would say neither story is a necessary read for Legends fans, but it is a fun adventure. One issue that I know authors have with these tie-in books to other media is that they can't do many big things that would handcuff the storytellers if they wanted to use these characters in different media going forward. We all love an interconnected universe. But sometimes that can hinder storytelling. How does the author kind of get around that in this story? Mother is this entity in an uncharted system deep in the unknown regions. Mother is destroyed at the end of the book. The clones of Cam Solusar, Mara Jade Skywalker, Lumaya, Jaden Korr, all of these clones are dealt with in one way or another so that they are off the board going forward. Most of them die. One of them becomes Jaden Korr, and the other disappears into the unknown regions. Since they're no longer around, future authors, future video game makers, future storytellers don't have to worry about fans asking the question, well, this is happening. Where are these clones? Where are these Force-sensitive clones that are wreaking havoc in the galaxy? And the two clones that did survive, one of them has become Jaden Korr, meaning there is only one Jaden Korr now, and the other disappears deep into the unknown regions. So that one's there if future storytellers want to use it or not. If they do, they can bring Soldier back. If they don't, then maybe Soldier and Grace did find that quiet little unknown world and live a nice, peaceful life. So that's the thing about writing stories, telling stories that are tie-in materials. You're basically telling stories on the margins. Many of the tie-in materials are not going to have important events that could alter or influence whatever the main story is. In this case, the main story would be the Jedi Academy video games. And then going forward, the next large series of books in Legends, the Fate of the Jedi series. So while I think this book is fine, while I think the action is pretty cool, it's easy to follow for the most part. There are two small things in this book that don't really work for me. It says that the Umbaran assassin, E19, cannot use the Force, but can dampen the ability of other Force users to touch the Force. I'm not a big fan of that. I've never been a fan of depowering Force users in order to deal with them. I think you can come up with some creative solutions for dealing with Force users. But I've never been a fan of taking their Force powers away. It's one criticism that I have, and many other people do, about the E Salamiri introduced in the Heir to the Empire trilogy. But to be honest, that's my main criticism about the book. The other small thing, and this is kind of funny, it's just a little surface thing. For those of you who have the mass market paperback copy of the book, it was published in 2011. At the beginning of a lot of the mass market paperbacks, they have a list of the main characters that you can expect to see in the book going forward. The dramatis personae. This book is no different. However, it lists 6 characters in this book. I don't have an issue with 5 of them. Jaden Core, Mar Edie Shale, Kedron Fall, Seer, and Grace. I find it a little odd that the only other name listed in the dramatis personae is Runner, one of the Force-sensitive clones. Soldier is not listed there. E19 is not listed there. They had way more page time. They had way more importance in this book than what Runner did. I don't know. I think that if I was Paul S. Kemp, I think I would have a question for the publisher. Why did you include this name in the dramatis personae and not these other 2 who are way more important to this story and have way more page time? Just a little nitpick. Every once in a while, there's a very small thing that just rubs you the wrong way, and you have to talk about it. So, overall though, pretty good story. The Duology of Cross Current and Riptide by Paul S. Kemp. If you enjoyed the Jedi Academy video games, read it for Jaden Core. If you have no experience with those video games, or if you only want to read legend stories that are really relevant to the overall story, that are really relevant to the overall Legends timeline, these are 2 books that you could skip. They're fun, but they're not really necessary for the storytelling. Well, it's almost time to go, but first, Ugo has a Star Wars Mount Rushmore and an unpopular opinion he would like to share. First, Ugo's Mount Rushmore of Star Wars storytellers. First would be George Lucas, as he gave us the Star Wars universe. Second would be Timothy Zahn, as his sequel trilogy started the expanded universe. Third would be Karen Traviss, for her insights on the clones and Mandalorians. Finally would be James Luceno, who gave us the insights of Palpatine, Darth Plagueis, and the events that led to Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's a really nice Mount Rushmore there, Ugo. Thank you very much. Secondly, Ugo wants to share his unpopular Star Wars opinion. He says, "My unpopular Star Wars opinion is about Ahsoka. I like her character in the Clone Wars, but I did not like the Ahsoka series because the story of Ahsoka and the Rebels characters doesn't work for me. I don't think that after Anakin became Darth Vader, Ahsoka would have not tried to confront him and turn him back into Anakin Skywalker. It looks to me that she went into hiding during the reign of the Empire. I would have preferred that she had tried to face Vader to try to turn Anakin back, but ultimately she would have failed and died by Vader's hand. This would have made more sense when Obi-Wan tells Luke, Vader betrayed and murdered your father. Because if Anakin would have killed Ahsoka, Anakin truly would have died with her. What are your thoughts? Well, Ugo, I try not to give my opinion too much when one of you listeners writes in your opinion, because I think that's really your stage for getting your thoughts out there. But since you asked, I will give one or two thoughts. First, I think the reason Ahsoka confronts Vader in Rebels is because she did not know that Anakin Skywalker survived the events of Order 66 until that point. I think when Darth Vader came to rise in the Empire, Ahsoka had no idea that that was Anakin. And I think it took about 15 years for her to come to that realization. I think that's the reason she did not confront Vader shortly after the events of Order 66. And secondly, and this is just my opinion, I don't have an issue with Ahsoka's story continuing on for as long as Lucasfilm wants to tell her story. However, I am not a fan of how Ahsoka survived her encounter with Vader in Rebels. Like I said in the previous episode, Cross Current, I am not a fan of time travel stories. And while there are aspects of the World Between Worlds that I really like, that I find really intriguing, watching Ezra reach back in time to save Ahsoka doesn't work for me. I'm not a fan of that. I like how Dave Filoni describes the World Between Worlds as a place where you can gain knowledge. To me, that's when it works the best. I, on some level, consider the Dark Side Cave on Dagobah as an entrance to the World Between Worlds. I think that the seaside cave that Rey goes into in The Last Jedi, on some level, is an entrance to a World Between Worlds. I like how the World Between Worlds is used in the Ahsoka television show. So while I like how the World Between Worlds is described by Dave Filoni as a place where you can gain knowledge and enlightenment, I just wish the storytellers hadn't had Ezra reach back through time and save Ahsoka. Thanks again for the email, Ugo. Listener, if you have an unpopular opinion you'd like to share with me, or if you have a Star Wars Mount Rushmore or Fighter Squadron or Road Trip Crew or mixtape, or if you disagree with something I've said on the podcast and you'd like to offer a different opinion, send me an email at swlegendslounge@gmail.com or send me a message on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram, also at swlegendslounge. Now, coming up on the next episode, I'll be covering another anthology book, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, edited by Kevin J. Anderson. You can look forward to that episode coming out on October 4th. Once again, thank you so much for listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. I'm Aaron Moats. May the Force be with you. And remember, there's always a bit of truth in legends.